Yes, hi, Chaitanya. Confirm you can hear me, please.
Yeah, Diago, I can hear you.
Okay, give me a second to. The lighting might be bad. There's no power right now, but I expect it to be back soon. So just allow me to share my screen in a minute.
No worries. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this session to Introduction to AZ900. I hope you all will be having a great learning experience today. And welcome, Diago. Thank you for taking your time for taking this session. And yeah,
All right, thank you. I'm sharing my screen now. Let me know when you can see it. Can you see my screen?
yes, your screen is visible.
Okay, let me also share a video. Yes. All right. Thank you once more, Chaitanya and Tiava, for this opportunity. And yes, I'll just go straight into it. Okay. First of all, let's get to know each other. Of course, I am Diego Kingsley Ugo by name, and hold on, sorry. Okay, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, MCT, and I'm also a cloud infrastructure engineer at Main One, an Equinix company here in Nigeria. And of course, this is what I look like on the right side, right? So, yep. And I don't know if we would need to introduce ourselves, maybe on the chat. Is that fine? You can tell us your name, your Azure experience, and maybe your expectations for the course. You know, your name, your Azure experience, and maybe your expectations for the course. We can just continue while you do that. Okay, so for this particular course, of course, we'll be looking at, just as like I have in the first page here, we're looking at AZ900, Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. This is the introductory course or introductory lesson to cloud computing in general. Um, and for this particular uh, session, we'll be looking at Microsoft Azure. Of course, we have several cloud service providers. We have Microsoft Azure, we have Google Cloud, we have AWS, which is Amazon Web Service. But for now, we'll be looking at Microsoft Azure just to understand how the cloud works. And yep, typically this course would take as much as 32 hours to cover. But for the sake of this particular session, we'll be doing this in about 2 hours. No need to panic. We might not be able to exhaust everything, but I'll try as much as possible to touch on every topic here. And of course, if we have questions, there will be time to ask those questions, and I'll provide answers to them. Also, beyond here, I'll be leaving my link to my LinkedIn profile as well as my Twitter account, so that in case we have further questions, we can always reach me through those channels. I hope that is fine. Chaitanya, I don't know, is that fine?
Yeah, they can write down the answer. They can write down in the chat box if that's fine.
Okay. All right, thank you. The light is quite bad, so I'll just turn off my camera now and just continue. All right. So yes, for the agenda here, we have introduction to cloud technology, and after that, we look at the cloud models. We have three cloud models: public, private, and hybrid cloud. We'll look at cloud benefits and considerations. We'll look at the cloud services, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. We'll get to know what they mean and how they work. We'll also look at Azure architectural components, talking about Azure regions, availability zones, subscriptions, and Azure resource groups. We'll also look at core Azure resources, and for this, we'll look at three resources: the compute resource, networking resource, and storage resource. And then we'll go further to look at Azure management tools, the tools that we can use to manage Azure Cloud. And for this, we'll take a look at the portal, Azure portal, take a look at PowerShell, and then we'll also look at Azure CLI. We'll go further to talk about Azure security features. For this, we'll look at the Key Vault, as well as dedicated hosts. And then Azure network security. We have network security groups and firewalls. And then last but not least, would talk about Azure governance features. Here we have role-based access control, resource locks, and tags. So let's quickly go right into it. So what is cloud technology? What is cloud computing? The very first thing we get to look at. So cloud technology, simply put, is a paradigm of computing that involves the delivery of computing services over the internet. I'll explain. Now, instead of relying on local servers or personal computers to handle data and applications, cloud technology allows users to access resources and services remotely via the internet. So let me break it down one after the other. So we said that it is a paradigm, right, of computing that involves the delivery of computing services over the internet. Now, instead of relying on local servers or personal computers, you can actually access, resources, computing resources over the internet remotely. What does this mean? Now, the same way we have our laptops, our desktop computers, we can actually have virtual computers that are hosted on the cloud, on the internet. You can get to reach those computers via the internet remotely. Now, the same way we have our laptops, we have storage for our laptop. Maybe some laptops come with 256 gig of storage, some come with 512 gig of storage, some come with 1 terabyte of storage. The same way we can actually provision virtual computers on the cloud with any amount of storage you want to give it. The same way we have internet access to our laptops, the same way we have IP addresses mapped to our laptops and our desktops, we can actually have IP addresses mapped to virtual computers on the cloud. Yeah, as we go further in this course, we'll see other reasons why people actually go to the cloud instead of having to, buy infrastructure physically. Our physical laptops and computers and desktops are, physical infrastructures. So we'll get to see, why people actually opt for cloud infrastructure rather than investing in physical infrastructure. We'll see that under cloud benefits. Yeah, this is exactly what I just mentioned. And some of these cloud resources we have are, compute, networking, storage, and analytics. So module one, let's look at cloud models, cloud benefits and considerations, and cloud services. So under cloud models, we look at public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. We'll also compare these three cloud models to see their differences. We'll also look at cloud benefits and considerations. And then under cloud services, we look at infrastructure as a service, IaaS, platform as a service, and software as a service. And then we'll also compare these three and see how they differ. Cloud models. Now let's look at the public cloud. Public cloud is owned by cloud services or hosting provider. Provides resources and services to multiple organizations and users, and is accessed over secure network, secure internet. Now, examples of public cloud, we have, of course, Microsoft Azure, which we are looking at right now. We also have AWS, Amazon Web Services, and then we have Google Cloud Platform, GCP. I don't know, we must have come across either of these or maybe all of them before now. So of course, public cloud, hosted over the internet, right? They are owned by cloud services or hosting providers. Microsoft is a hosting provider. Amazon is a hosting provider. Google is a hosting provider for Google Cloud, right? So that is what the public cloud is, right? Now let's look at the private cloud. Now for private cloud, we have that, we can see private clouds in organizations. Organizations can get to create a cloud environment in their data center. Like you can see on the right side, the image I have here, a data center can be a physical location, a physical building that houses your servers. A data center can be a physical location, a physical building where your servers are being housed, where they are being located. That is what we call a data center. So an organization can actually get to, create a cloud environment in their data center. An organization can get to, have servers located in a building and host Azure cloud on those servers or host AWS cloud on those servers. And that one would suffice for a private cloud. Now we see that public cloud, owned by cloud providers here, they get to offer services to organizations and users. But private cloud is just located within an organization only for use by that organization. It's private to them. Now, the organization is responsible for everything that has to do with that cloud. They're responsible for the operating systems, they're responsible for the services they provide and everything. And then there's no access to external users. Any user outside the organization does not have access to the private cloud. Private cloud is private to the organization, meant for users only within the organization. The third one we have is the hybrid cloud. For hybrid cloud, we see that, of course, just as the name implies, it's a combination of the public cloud and the private cloud. Right? Some organizations they want to have resources hosted in the public cloud, and at the same time, they also want to have some resources hosted locally, private to themselves. There are some kind of resources or some kind of websites or whatever it is that they do not want to leave the organization. They want it to be private to them. So they host those ones privately. And then there are some others that they don't mind to have publicly that they get to host in the public cloud. So let's just compare these three real quick. Now, for the public cloud, like I said, the examples are Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Cloud. For the public cloud, we see that we as the users, we don't get to spend anything when it comes to capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is the expense or the money you spend or whatever resources you get to use to set up an infrastructure. So we don't care about the setup. We just go to Azure, for instance, and pay for the service. Azure already has the setup. They have the infrastructure. They've spent all the money they can spend on capital expenditure. They have data centers, they have the servers, they have the network, they have everything. So we are just concerned about, going there to get a service. Take for instance, a house owner who wants to lease his apartments. He has a building that has probably 20 apartments in it. Now he has already spent all the money he wants to spend on, you know, setting up the building, acquiring the land, setting up the building, putting electricity, every other service that is required for the building to run, right? But we as users, we don't get to care about that. We just want an apartment from the whole building. So what do? We pay the house owner some particular amount of money, maybe once a month, once a year, in 10 years. We pay an amount of money to the owner of that building for a particular apartment that we want to use. We get to renew this contract depending on the agreement, maybe monthly, yearly, or whichever way we want to do it. So that can be, we can see the public cloud like that, right? Microsoft Azure, for instance, being the house owner, they have all the infrastructure we need to make use of their service. What we just need to do is what? Pay up, and those services are released to us for use. So, for the public cloud also, applications can be quickly provisioned and deprovisioned, of course. And then organizations pay only for what they use. You only pay for what service you are using on the public cloud. Now, for the private cloud, like I said, it is private to an organization. Therefore, that organization gets to, purchase the hardware for the startup and maintenance of that private cloud, right? The organization also has complete control over resources and security of that cloud. The organization also is responsible for hardware maintenance and updates. Now let's quickly compare these two, public and private. In public, you see that the user or the organization does not care about the capital expenditure, the hardware, the infrastructure, the security, the the building infrastructure, whatever it is to set up that cloud. The user, the organization does not care about that. It is the business of the cloud service provider. But when it comes to private cloud, like I said, it is private to the organization. When it comes to private cloud, the organization has to deal with purchase of the hardware, maintenance of the hardware, ensuring that the hardware and the softwares that are running on those hardwares are security. They also have to make sure that they carry out maintenance and updates on whatever it is they are hosting privately. Now, when it comes to hybrid cloud, of course, is just a mix of the two other types of cloud. This provides more flexibility for the users, right? The organization gets to decide where to run the applications, whether privately or publicly. Let's quickly delve into cloud benefits. Cloud benefits. Now, these are just some of the benefits of cloud computing. These are some of the reasons why people or organizations get to choose cloud over of course, over traditional modes of computing. One is high availability. High availability. High availability is. Okay, let me quickly run through all of them first before I start to explain. We have high availability, we have scalability, global reach, agility, disaster recovery, fault tolerance, elasticity, customer latency capabilities, predictive cost considerations, and security. So let's look at high availability. When you say something is highly available, it means that even when there are outages, even when there are issues with the service, it keeps on running. It keeps on running. So for instance, let us take, for instance, we have an application running on a server, right? On just one server. Now, what happens when the server goes down? I'm trying to compare traditional on-premise servers to cloud servers now. What happens when the traditional on-premise server goes down? If that server goes down for any reason, I mean, there are like various reasons why that could happen. It could be power, it could be malware infection, it could be uh maybe you want to run maintenance on that server, for instance. It could be network issues also. Now, what happens when that server goes down? I mean, once the server goes down, whatever application or service is being run on the server gets to go down also. Now, when this happens, you as an organization, I mean, it gets to affect your clients, the clients that are using those services. But when you now come to the cloud, and of course, like we said, cloud is highly available. You know, high availability can be achieved in the cloud by several means. I mean, there can be skill sets, there can be availability sets where there are like two servers running concurrently together, hosting the same applications, such that when one server goes down or there's an issue with one server, the other server picks up immediately and continues to run the application. And doing this, I mean, your clients or the end users do not experience any downtime. There are no disruptions in service with high availability. And that can also be said for fault tolerance. Cloud services are built based on fault tolerance. They have to be fault tolerant in the sense that, I mean, when there are cases of faults, the cloud service still has to keep on running. This cannot be said for our, traditional way of computing. Because of course, for my laptop now, if my laptop should go down, I probably would lose access to this session automatically, right? If network on my laptop should go off, I will lose access to this session automatically, right? Now, on that benefit, we are going to look at the scalability and elasticity. So scalability, of course, is, you know, it gives businesses a convenient, agile, and fast way to handle traffic increase. You know, the feature of scalability is seen where, let's say, for instance, we have just one cloud server um, feeding or, will I say, hosting an application. Of course, this application is being used by several people, maybe 1,000 people initially, and then the business grows, and then 2,000 people start to use the application, 3,000, 4,000. It will get to a point where that particular server can no longer handle that traffic. Now, with the feature of scalability, an identical server can be spun up immediately to continue to handle the traffic. Therefore, the original server is still running, and then probably the limit is set to 75%. Maybe, when traffic of up to 75% comes to the server, another server should be spun up to handle the new traffic. Now what happens here is the fact that one server is not overwhelmed by traffic, because what happens when one server is overwhelmed by traffic? That server begins to slow down, and services are being impacted. Users can no longer access services running on those servers properly. But when a server scales out and creates another server to handle more traffic, you see that, I mean, each of these servers are going to operate optimally without any downtime, without being slowed down by anything. And what also happens when that business has grown to 5,000 users begins to shrink? If that business gets to go down, maybe 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, if it gets to go below 75% usage, then the server that has been created on the other side gets to be deprovisioned. It gets to be deleted, and then all traffic gets routed to what? To one particular server. Now, the difference between this scalability and our traditional way of computing is, let's take, for instance, I own a company, a private company, a small company, and I am using just one server to host, of course, my application and everything that users get to use when they try to access my services, right? And then maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, my business grows, right? And I get to have 1,000 users, from 1,000 to 2,000 users, 3,000 users, 4,000 users, and that my server is beginning to be overwhelmed by too many traffic coming from all these users. Now, what happens there is that, of course, my server will begin to slow down. Many users might not be able to reach the services that they want to access any longer, right? And then for me to be able to keep on operating, I might have to quickly place an order or go out to get another physical server, start to configure it, start to put the networking, the security, and install the application on this other server so that I can now route traffic to the other server for users to access. Now, it will take me some time to be able to do all of these activities, go out, get the servers, configure them with the users, install the application, apply security features, networking, assign IP addresses, and all of that. It will take me some time to actually get all this together. And now that time is taking me, of course, some users are being impacted by the fact that they cannot access services to those servers, right? But with cloud, when scalability is applied, I mean, servers can be scaled out or scaled in within seconds. So there's less downtime, less impact on your users when you are on the cloud. Now, for global reach, of course, like I said, the cloud gives you the ability to access services over the internet, right? So from wherever you are, if you have, let's say, a virtual machine on Azure cloud, you can access the virtual machine from wherever you are, whether you are, in the same region where that machine was provisioned or in some other region. You can always access that virtual machine from wherever you are. All you need is internet access and a physical device to use to access that virtual machine. Now, difference between this and traditional mode of computing is, if I have files in my laptop now, locally, present in my laptop, and probably I'm not in the same location as my laptop, maybe I'm some miles away, I won't be able to access those files. I won't be able to access that app running that server locally unless I am in the same place where that server is. But when it comes to the cloud, public cloud, whatever service is running on a virtual server can be accessed from anywhere, so long as you have the credentials to access the server. That's the global reach talking about here. Now we talk about disaster recovery. Of course, we know that one benefit of the cloud is that it is resilient and it is also built to, to guard against disaster. Now I'll give you an instance. We have cloud servers, and usually these cloud servers are usually backed up. There's something called backup, something called replication. Now, there are several types of disaster. There can be, maybe a fire outbreak on the data center, that is hosting these cloud services. There can be malware infection on the particular server hosting your services. There can be several kind of disasters. But when we have backup configured on these servers, of course, whatever disaster occurs on the server, the customer's data or whoever, your data is still protected by the backup. You can always, spin up another server and restore a backup of your previous server to the new server, and then you keep on operating like business as usual. So disaster recovery, I mean, with the cloud is built to guard against disaster. When it comes to security, also another cloud benefit, we see that the cloud, you can get to apply several security features or measures, to the cloud. Sorry, give me a minute. Can you still hear me?
Yes, Diago, we can hear you.
Okay. Just to confirm that you can hear me. All right, let me just continue. All right. So we talk about security in the cloud. Now there are several, of course, we'll also see that in the course of this session. Okay, I see that somebody's hand is up. Um, Alfredo, yes. Also, yes, you can ask your questions, or you can raise up your hands, and Chaitanya can just notify me when somebody's hand is raised for questions or observations. All right, Alfredo, I think you can see something now.
Alfredo, can you please ask your question in the chat box?
Okay,
Because we can't give access to everyone for the unmute. We can do that in the,
okay,
and we might able to do that in the end of the session. But
okay.
please prefer to ask your question in the chat box.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. Yes, you can ask a question in the chat box, Alfredo. Okay, let me just continue. Of course, I'll also give time for questions and answers, where I would get to look at the questions asked in the chat and provide answers to them, and then we can continue. So I was on security, right? In the cloud, there are various security measures for the cloud, and I think I'll just leave that to the slide when we get there. It's better explained there. Okay. So this is just a comparison of capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Capital expenditure is seen where you're trying to host your own physical infrastructure, when you're trying to host your own private cloud. You get to spend money on setting up the building, you get to spend money on purchases of the servers, you get to spend money on the security measures, both security for the building itself and security for your infrastructure. You also get to spend money on all the cooling, all the cooling services you need to employ in your data center, as the case may be. And of course, you need staff to work in there. So you also need to, spend money on those staff. When it comes to operational expenditure, I mean, this is seen when you subscribe to a cloud service. You don't spend money on all the infrastructure. You don't spend money on security. You don't spend money on maintaining the infrastructure. All you need to do is what you pay for the services you use on the cloud. Is a pay as you go um uh uh kind of feature. Like you pay for the services you use on the cloud, and that can be seen as operational expenditure. Right. So of course, the cloud also makes use of a consumption-based model where, like I said in the previous slide, you only pay for what you use. If there are resources you don't use, then you don't get to pay for them. But so long as they're in use by you, you get to pay for those resources. So that's what's meant by a consumption-based model of cloud. Yep. So let's quickly look at the cloud services we have. Like I said, we have IaaS, infrastructure as a service. We have PaaS, platform as a service, and we also have SaaS, to be software as a service. Let's look at them individually. IaaS, infrastructure as a service. Now, as the name implies, infrastructure as a service, this is a kind of cloud offering where the cloud provider gets to give you all of the infrastructure you need. I mean, they have the infrastructure already. So you can use their infrastructure for your operations. The point I have here says you can build pay-as-you-go IT infrastructure by renting servers, virtual machines, storage, networks, and operating systems from a cloud provider. Now, when you look at the diagram I have on the screen, we see that this is like a cloud provider's environment, right? The cloud provider already has the data center. That's the physical building where the servers are located. The physical servers are located, right? The cloud provider also has the networking and the firewalls, security of those servers. The provider also has the servers in the data center and also the storage. So when you subscribe for infrastructure as a service, you don't need to bother about data center. You don't need to bother about networking and security of the data center or the servers. You also don't need to bother about the servers and the storage. They will be provided for you, or rather, they're already provided by the cloud provider. All you need to do is pay some money to use part of these resources owned by the cloud provider. So that is what you get when you subscribe for infrastructure as a service. For platform as a service, now this provides environments for building, testing, and deploying software applications without focusing on managing underlying infrastructure. Now for platform, based on this diagram, we see that your cloud provider gives you the infrastructure, the IaaS part, that's this part, it gives you this part, and also goes ahead to give you the platform for you to now host your applications. The platform comprises of, the infrastructure as well as operating systems and a development kit for you to use to develop or deploy your applications. Right? So if you're subscribing for platform as a service, you don't need to bother about the infrastructure where your application will be hosted on. You don't need to bother about the operating system. You also need to bother about the development tools used. All you need to do is just bring your applications and deploy them on the development kit. Right? That is what is seen for platform as a service. Now, for software as a service, of course, your service provider gets to give you the infrastructure, the platform, and even the software. Now, examples of software as a service are your basic softwares you have on your mobile devices, as well as your desktop devices. It could be your calendars, your email, your Microsoft Office, even Google Meets, LinkedIn software, your Gmail, your whatever software you're using on your mobile phones or your laptops. They are examples of software as a service. So here, you don't bother about the infrastructure, you don't bother about the platform. Just the provider gives you the software. All you need to do now is just put your information in that software and get to use it. That's all. So we have three cloud services. We have the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Now, looking at them together, we see that infrastructure is the most flexible because you only have the infrastructure. You can decide the kind of operating system to use. Of course, going back to this diagram, we have the infrastructure with us. So we can decide on what operating system to use, what development tools to make use of, And what softwares you want or applications you want to run on that infrastructure. That's why we said here that it is the most flexible cloud service. It allows you to manage almost everything by yourself. You can configure and manage hardware for your application. Now, when we look at platform as a service, the user gets to focus on application development because the platform is made available by the cloud provider. The cloud provider provides the platform for you. They manage the platform for you. All you need to do now is to focus on the application development. Now, when we look at software as a service, of course, for this one, you get to pay for this software, you know. So you don't bother about anything. You don't bother about the infrastructure, the platform, or even the software. All you need to do is what? Get the software and start to use it, basically. Just the same way we use Gmail, the same way we use Facebook, but we don't even bother about the platform that Facebook is built on. We don't bother about the infrastructure, whether it's Azure, AWS, Google Cloud that Facebook is running on. We don't bother about that. All we need to do is just what? Download the applications, download the software, input our details, and start to use them. So we have what we call the shared responsibility model for all of these cloud services. And if you look at the screen, you would see that we have comparison, or maybe side by side, from on premises, which is your private cloud, to infrastructure, platform, and software as a service. We have all of these uh, services. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so for the on-premises, that's your private cloud. Like I said initially when I was talking about the private cloud, I said that you get to manage everything concerning your cloud, your private cloud. By the right here, you see the key here. Green, you manage. For the blue, your cloud provider manages it. So anywhere you see green here is what you get to manage yourself, while anywhere you see blue is what your cloud provider gets to manage on your behalf. So for on-premises, private cloud, you manage everything, starting from the storage, networking, the compute, the virtual machine, operating system, runtime applications, data and access. You manage all, right? Well, for infrastructure, like I said in the previous slides, your cloud provider provides you with infrastructure. Infrastructure here is relating to the compute, networking, and the storage. You are being provided the infrastructure. All you now have to provide for yourself, or manage by yourself, are the virtual machine to which to deploy on that infrastructure, the OS to run on that virtual machine, the runtime, the applications to host on the virtual machine, and the data and access, of course, to that virtual machine or the infrastructure. For platform as a service, your cloud provider gives you the platform, and platform involves, of course, compute, network, storage, virtual machine, OS, and the runtime. All you need to do in this case is what? Host your applications on that platform and manage your data and access. For software, like I said, you don't even need to host your applications. The applications is made available for you. All you need to do is what? You access the application, have your data stored in the application, and carry on. We can see an example in uh, um, Google Google Drive. Yeah, Google Drive. It's an application, right, by Google. So all we need to do is what? Access the application, store our data in it, and manage that data by ourselves. So that is what is seen with software as a service. So onto the next module, we are on module 2, where we look at Azure architectural components, under which we see Azure regions, availability zones, subscriptions, and resource groups. We'll also look at Azure core resources, where we'll talk about compute, networking, storage. Of course, we have several other resources, but for the introductory, to cloud, for this course, we'll look at just these basic three. Okay, so for regions, Azure regions, on the diagram I have on the screen, we have several Azure regions on this diagram, right? But Azure regions are basically made up of one or more data centers in close proximity. Now, Azure regions provide flexibility and scale to reduce customer latency. Now, let us go a little deeper into it. Availability zones. Now, I'll use the diagram by the right to explain Azure regions and availability zones. Now, an availability zone can be seen as a physically separate data center. It can be seen as what? A data center. A data center, or DC, I'll use the words or the acronym DC for data center and AZ for availability zone, just for simplicity. So a DC, data center, is a location or a physical infrastructure, a building that houses your servers, your physical servers, where your cloud is being hosted on. Like I said, a DC is also an availability zone. And if you see this diagram by the right here, we see that, I don't know if you can see my mouse, we see that we have availability zone 1, AZ1, AZ2, and AZ3. This is DC1, DC2, and DC3. If you look inside this diagram, you see several servers running on different racks in each of these availability zones, right? And we know that an Azure region comprises of one or more data centers or availability zones in close proximity. So when we have a DC somewhere, another DC somewhere close to DC1, another DC somewhere else close to the other two DCs, we can call these three DCs an Azure region. Provide protection against them due to data center failure, right? And each DC is equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking, and they are all interconnected through private fiber optic networks.
Diago,
Right.
your voice got breaked. Like,
Sorry?
your voice got breaked. Just like, can you please repeat your last 2, 3 lines? Maybe your voice
My
got
last few
break.
lines. Okay, you
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
hear that well.
Sorry.
Can you hear me very well?
Yeah, now we can hear you. It's just that in between your voice got breaked.
Oh, okay. It must be the network. All right. So I said that an availability zone provides protection against downtime due to data center failure. Now, physical separate data centers within the same region make up an availability zone. I mean, an AZ is a physically separate data center within the same region. Now, each DC is equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. And, DCs in a region are connected through private fiber optic networks. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that. Can you still hear me? I'm sorry, it's raining. It's raining so much down here, so
Yeah, we can hear
there
you.
might
We
be
can hear
some.
you fine.
Sorry.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
you
So
can.
I didn't get that. Sorry.
Yeah, you are audible. Everything is fine.
Uh, hold on. Let me see what I can do to hear you properly.
Uh, am I audible? I think you are audible. You are everything is fine.
Okay, okay, all right, that's fine. I can hear you now. All right.
Yeah.
So yes, all
We
right.
can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. So like I was saying, now because availability zones are being connected through private fiber optic networks, you know, initially, I don't know if you can remember, I mentioned high availability as one of the qualities or one of the advantages of the cloud, right? Now let's take for instance, you as a user, you host you buy infrastructure as a service and you host your applications on this particular data center, AZ1, right? And let's say there's an issue with AZ1 and you still want, I mean, your app is being hosted here originally, but there's an issue with AZ1. You can easily fail over to AZ2 and continue to use your app because this AZ1 and AZ2 are connected through a network. There's a network connecting AZ1 to AZ2 within the same region. Now, because AZ1 is down, does not mean that your users or you cannot use your application anymore. No, you can still use the application because it is inside the same region as AZ2. So the same apps running here are also running here and they're also running AZ3. So if any of these is down, your app or your users don't get impacted by that downtime. Right. So that is, of course, like I said, one quality of the cloud. Now let's look at Azure resources in general. Now Azure resources just entail components like storage, virtual machines, networks that are being built on Azure. Like I said, we have various resources on the cloud, you know, but for the sake of this course, we're looking at just these first three resources: virtual machines, storage, and virtual networks. Now we also want to look at resource groups. Resource groups. There might be no time today to look at practical or to go practical on all of this because of time constraints. But of course, I will show us the portal and how these things look. So resource groups. A resource group is basically a container to manage resources. It's simply a container with which you can use to manage cloud resources. Right? It's just as simple as that, and I will show us when we log into the portal. We also have Azure subscriptions, and this is basically what it is. When you want to use Azure services, you have to buy a subscription. You have to opt for a subscription. When you are assigned that subscription, it gives you access to resources on Azure. Now let's quickly look at Azure virtual machines. Azure virtual machines, right? 1 hour is gone already, so we have 30 more minutes before we entertain questions. Azure virtual machines. VMs or virtual machines are software emulations of physical computers. Like I explained initially, the same way we have our physical laptops, our physical desktops, we also have virtual laptops or virtual machines, rather, which also operates exactly the same way as your physical computers. Now we have physical processors, physical memory, physical storage, and networking for our physical computers, right? We also have virtual processors, virtual memory, virtual storage, and networking for our virtual machines. Right? Now, virtual machines operate on physical servers. They get to share the physical processor or the physical servers. So the same way we have physical processors, physical memory, maybe of 4 gig of RAM or 12 gig of RAM or 16 gig of RAM, we also have that virtually for our virtual machines. Now we look at Azure networking services. Now, networking services in Azure comprises of several services, out of which are the VNets, virtual networks, the VPN, virtual private network, and also Azure Express routes. If you have any questions as we go further, we can type them in the chat. All right, so Azure Virtual Networks. It enables Azure resources to communicate with each other over the internet and on-premises networks. Like I said, our physical laptops or physical servers have networks already, right? But we also have something called virtual networks that are being assigned to our virtual resources, our virtual machines. Of course, our virtual machines need networks to communicate with the internet. And that is where the Azure Virtual Network comes in, the VNet. Right? We also have VPN, Virtual Private Network, which is used to send encrypted traffic between an Azure Virtual Network over the internet. And when we come to Azure Storage Services, we have container storage or blob storage, we have disk storage, we have Azure Files. Now, on the Azure cloud, of course, just like our traditional computers, where we have disks, where we can store, data, we have File Explorer on our laptops, so we can get to store, data also. In the same way, we also have this same disk storage, for our virtual machines and applications on Azure cloud. We have Azure Files, Azure Network Files, where we can store network files, on Azure. So that is what we have for Azure storage services. Now there are several access tiers to Azure storage. There is the hot, the cool, and the archive. Now the hot tier of storage is used to store data that you access frequently. If there's some data that you access, almost all the time, frequently, you can get to store them in the hot or as hot access tiers. For the cool, is optimized for storing data that is infrequently accessed. Maybe there's some data that you access only once every 30 days, or once every 60 days. You can store that data as, a cool access tier. You can set it as a cool access tier. For archive, you can get to store optimized data that you access maybe once in more than 80 days, once in 6 months. Any data that you access once in 6 months is automatically moved to the archive access tier. The one you access in 30 days is moved to the cool access tier, while the one you access frequently is, saved in the hot access tier. Now, how do we manage Azure resources? How do we manage our services on Azure? I made mention of the portal already before, which I said I would show us. So we have Azure Management Tools, we have the Azure portal, we have PowerShell, and we have Azure CLI. Azure command line interface. There are also other management tools, other advanced management tools, but for the purpose of this course, we will look at these three. Okay, hold on. Let me log on to the portal to show us what it looks like. I'll do that quickly and I'll share the screen. Okay, I'm currently logged in. Let me share the screen to the portal so that we can all have a look at what the portal is. For want of time, we might have to be rounding up, right? But let me just share that screen and we can see what it looks like. Okay, let me know when you can see my screen. Chaitanya, you can let me know when you can see my screen so that I can continue.
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay, so this is the Microsoft Azure portal, portal.azure.com, and this is the home page. Of course, here you can see some Azure services, like I mentioned, virtual machine, storage accounts, some other services, static web apps, advisor, and the likes. This is what the dashboard looks like. And I made mention of, okay, I don't have any virtual machine created in this my environment, but we can quickly look at one. I made mention of resource groups, right? So by the left pane here, we have the, the navigation panel where you can, get to access many services that the Azure provides. So resource groups. So like I said, resource groups is just, a group or, a particular container where you can use to manage your resources. Okay, for want of time, I don't know, we might not have to get into all of this right now, but this is the environment where you get to create your virtual machines. From these virtual machines pane here, you can create virtual machines. Okay, you can create virtual machines, you can create Ubuntu servers, you can create Windows servers, you can create Windows Server 2019, Red Hat, SUSE Linux, Oracle Linux, whatever kind of server you want to create, you can actually create them through these virtual machines service here. Also virtual networks, you can create virtual networks, also create subnets for your resources, and things like that. You can assign IP addresses to your virtual networks, address blocks, subnets, and the like that. You can assign security rules to them, assign tags, and things like that. Really, like I said, this course typically takes about 2 hours to complete. Including theory sessions and also hands-on sessions where we get to deploy some of these resources. But because we have very, very short time constraints, we might have to round up quickly. So basically, this is just how the Azure portal looks like. Portal.azure.com. If you pay for a subscription, you get access to this portal. I have access because I am a Microsoft certified trainer, and I get Azure credits every month, right? So I can actually deploy resources here. But if you need access, you might have to pay for the access. Like you can see here, I have $150 of credits for this month. So every month I get some credits on my account. So let me quickly just rush back to the slides and see what we can cover there before we call it quits. Okay, let me see. We already got past this. Okay. All right, so next we have Azure security features. But before we go into this, just so that I can attend to your questions, I think we should try to take some questions now and continue with this when we're done with the questions, if time still permits. All right. Chaitanya, can you help me with the questions if you have them? I'm trying to access the chats to see them for myself.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
I see that Jude's hand is up. Jude.
So someone asked, would we have a practical class subsequently?
I think that would be for the Stiava team to decide. But also we need to also understand that a practical class we would need at least an Azure subscription, right? Because we can't have, well, there can be a student account can be created, right, for us to have a practical class. So I think I'll leave the Stiava team to answer that particular question.
So for that, we will decide and then let you know. And
Okay.
and yeah, someone also said, great job. Would appreciate if the slides are mailed. So we'll for that also we'll let you know and
Okay.
regarding the slides.
Okay. Uh, okay. Any more questions or comments? Okay, Jude, I see your comments. Interesting. What is the next step? Any plans for scale up? Okay. Well, basically, like I said, this course takes lots of hours to actually complete. So we can't bring down everything to 2 hours. But we'll have a discussion with the Stiava team to know how we can have more sessions and probably hands-on practicals for this particular course, right? Yeah. And then Alfredo is asking if there are regions in the Philippines. So let me quickly check that for you. What region is the Philippines in? Is it Asia? Is it you know?
So we have like two regions. One is APAC region and one is Africa region. But it's not
Okay.
like that. Uh, anyone cannot join Africa region event or anyone cannot join. It's like just we have segregated it to in two regions. So it's fine if you have joined from another region. But yeah, but we have specific event centric uh,
Yeah,
events,
yeah,
region
I get
centric.
that, but I think yeah, Alfredo was asking based on the Azure regions, yeah. So he was asking if there are regions in the Philippines. So there might not be any, there might be regions there, of course, but what you would see on Azure would be Asia, maybe East Asia, West Asia, and things like that. So for you to have your Azure resources close to you, you can check to see what part of Asia you are in. If you are in West Asia or East Asia, you can choose to host your resources in that particular region. It doesn't have to be in your country in Philippines. No, it can be any other place in West Asia or East Asia, as the case may be. Right? I see that somebody's hand is up. I don't know. Uh, for time constraints, I'm looking at someone is asking about the security parts, network security parts. These are things we'll look at in the next session, really. Someone is also asking about Sanel Gumede. I don't know if I got your name well. Sorry about that, but he's asking to explain more about PowerShell. Okay. Clinton Wigwe is asking, yes, I think the video is made available for us. Chaitanya can confirm that. And for Nigeria, for us in Nigeria, we usually use US East, US East region. We typically use US East region in Nigeria. I don't think there are any regions in Nigeria yet per se, but we typically use US East region in Nigeria here.
Diego, someone is asking what's the learning duration for the certification. I mean,
So
I hope that,
o-
that means yeah, like how can
okay,
one get the certification?
okay. So the duration typically depends on your commitments to the learning process, but the Azure 900 certification, like I said, it's the basic certification, it's the introduction, right? So it's not a very tough exam, although you still need to prepare properly for it. So duration typically depends on your preparation though, and I can quickly drop resources you can use to prepare. One of those resources is Microsoft Learn. Let me quickly get the link to drop on here. Microsoft Learn AZ900. If there are other questions, you can just help me read them out while I get these. Okay, got it. Let me share this on the chat. Okay, let me also share the screen on that link I just dropped just to show us how we can. So I'm sharing my screen now. Let me know when you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, your screen is visible, and
Okay.
I hope everyone
Okay.
can see this.
All right. So this link, I mean, through this link, you can get to, access the exam. You can get to schedule the exam and also prepare for the exam. If you scroll down, you see this part, 2 ways to prepare, self-paced or instructor-led. Self-paced, you can see these modules, right? Cloud concept, you can start, and it takes you through all the modules under cloud concept. And when you're done with that, you can come down to Azure architecture and services, Azure management and governance. These are basically what I just covered, or what I'm still here to cover in this course. But you can get to learn these on your own also through this link. And then when you do that, I think you're good to go for the exam. You can take the exam and get certified in that particular exam, right? Okay, Jerick is asking if I can share, or maybe there's a walkthrough for these Azure tools that I've shown. Yes, we can actually look at this, but like I said, it will take us several hours to cover those things. And I believe the Stieva team would, make provision, if need be, for other sessions to hold, where we can actually get to look at these, right? But it's not something we can cover right now, right? Ezekiel is asking, with respect to private cloud, since it requires an organization to have a physical data center, of what use is the need for cloud infrastructure since the is already on-prem? Now, for private cloud, right? Uh, pardon me, I might. Okay, the AZ900 course goes for, it depends on your country. But if you click on the link I dropped on the chat, you can get to select your country and see how much you're being charged for it. So back to Ezekiel's question. For private cloud, we see that, of course, you have to buy the infrastructure. You have to build the data center. You have to buy the servers. You have to place orders to Microsoft to give you servers. You have to pay for security. You have to, infrastructure here doesn't have to be just servers. I mean, you have to also buy cooling. You have to pay for generating sets. I mean, power sets in case there's power outage and everything. So all of these are what you have to do in order to be able to host your own private cloud, right? And all these will cost you a lot. But if you are going to public cloud, you don't have to bother about the physical infrastructure and all this. You just pay a little amount of money to the cloud provider for them to provide you with all these resources, right? Just pay a little amount of money to providers to get you all of these resources. So I'm trying to switch to my mobile device. Because I don't know, I might be losing connection soon since my laptop is very low. But okay, hold on. Okay, I'm there now. So there are several other reasons, Ezekiel, why you want to choose public cloud instead of private cloud. There are several other reasons, right? But we'll look at that in coming sessions. My YouTube channel, I'm not so active on YouTube, but I'll just drop my LinkedIn profile for us to connect, and also my Twitter profile in case we need to connect. I'll drop it on the chat shortly after this call. Is there a fully funded free examination provider for AZ900? So before now, the okay, Chatania has dropped the YouTube link. That's fine. So before now, there used to be a program, right, where you get to attend and then get free vouchers for AZ900. But lately, I think Microsoft has discontinued that program, so you have to pay for it. Okay, so Abdul Majid is asking, in all the cloud provider, AWS, Azure, GCP, not GPS, GCP, which is easier, cheaper, less complex, and better? Okay, so it all still depends on perspective, the way you look at it, right? I would say that AWS is a bit more complex because it has lots and lots of resources, in it, AWS. So it's a bit more complex. So Azure is quite simple as well as GCP, right? But it still depends on, the way you look at it and the one you prefer to use. Ezekiel is asking, there are organizations that would only need private cloud based on their needs and special scenarios. Of course, there are organizations that just need only private cloud. They don't want their data to go public. They want to have all the data hosted privately. So yes, they opt for private cloud. But that also means that they will spend so much more money to set up their private cloud and manage it. You know, yeah, that's what that means. Okay. Yeah, Dante, we can, just not right now. The time today for this session is already spent, and I need to jump on something else real quick. But like I said, we would have a discussion and know how we can actually get to go through the rest of the slides and also hands-on sessions. So yeah, there's a lot to actually learn here. This is just introduction. And even after we are done with the slides and also the practical sessions, I would also encourage that we all keep on, playing around the cloud, playing around Azure Cloud, creating resources, connecting to virtual machines, using network resources and everything, just to learn more about it. That is something we can actually still do on our own. Okay, let me go ahead to drop. I think Chatanya will drop my LinkedIn and my sorry, let me switch to my mobile device. Okay, confirm that you can. Confirm that you can hear me now. Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me, Chatanya?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So, Chatanya, I would share my LinkedIn profile as well as my Twitter with Chatanya, and he will drop that on the chat right away.
Sure.
Yeah, just give me a second. Just give me a second.
Oh, Chetanya, should I just drop it on the chat or should I share with you privately?
It's up to you. Anywhere you can share it with me. I'll share it with in the chat. It works anyways.
Okay, let me just drop it on the chat. Okay, you don't have LinkedIn, but do you have Twitter?
If you are not on LinkedIn, then I would highly recommend you to create an account. It's good for job opportunities and other resources, to connect with speakers, to connect with people who are experts. So it's just a suggestion from my side that do sign up on LinkedIn.
Yep. Let me drop my Twitter also. Okay, that's my LinkedIn and Twitter. Right. Just confirm. Yeah, correct. So Chetanya, I think there's a question for you. Is there a certification or certification?
Yeah, so I have shared a link for the certificate and for this session. So that is kind of an attendance link. So do fill it. I have already pinned that as well. I'll share it again.
Okay.
So if you want the certificate for this session, then do fill this form.
Okay. So are there further questions? For now, like I said, to continue with this session, we can have another session. You know, we'll discuss on that and get back to the team on that. Right. So yeah. Thank you, Abdul Majid. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So there are no other questions. I think we can call it a day. I don't know. Chetanya, are you good with that? Or is there anything you want to say?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you, Diego. Thank you for taking your time and sharing your knowledge about AZ900. And I hope everyone had a good learning experience today. And we look forward for more such interactions. So thank you.
All right. Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. And we look forward to meeting again. All right. Bye.
Bye. So I am sharing the certification link, link for the attendance form again. So it's so you have to fill it if you want the certificate for today's session. And yeah, uh, I already shared twice, but I'm still sharing it. Please do fill it carefully so that you don't so that we can mail you your certificate and all the resources that are shared in today's session. And uh, and I have some resources as well for AZ900. Let me just share it that as well. Thank you everyone for joining today. and we hope you had a great learning experience. Also, if you haven't joined our community, then do join it. It is it so that you get notification about our upcoming events and all the things that we have planned for you guys. So do join our community. I've shared the link as well. If you do follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, do join our WhatsApp group. We have one WhatsApp group in which we notify and share the updates about the upcoming events. And yeah, so do join our community and share this among your friends as well. So we will mail you the certificate. The certificate won't be get downloaded, and the recording for today's session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. I've shared that link as well. So do subscribe our YouTube channel, and so that you can go through the recording of this event.